Dr. Henry, I wanted to ask you about the decision to bump up for the second time, the age cohorts yesterday. Is there a ripple effect of that extends to the other ages that were outlined on March the 1st when he gave us a list of the 70-year-olds and 60-year-olds and all the way from basically April to September? Are we bumping those people up now a week, and how does that work?
Absolutely, yes. That's as we're building up momentum. We wanted to start off with try and as best we can make it easier for people as we're getting our clinics up and running, and so many of the clinics now are ones that will be expanding as we go down the age cohorts. We're talking about larger and larger groups of people, so this has been our way to try and ramp it up in a way that's effective and make sure that people get what they need in terms of access to the clinics. And yes, we will be ramping up and increasing the other age groups as soon as we are able to.
I think what's important to recognize as well is that we need to adapt to the key issue that still faces us, which is when vaccine arrives. And it presents daily challenges. Some weeks we think it's coming on Tuesday and it comes on Wednesday, which presents some challenges, particularly in the organization of public clinics. And in the case of this present period, we've received somewhat more vaccine in this period between March 15th and March 31st, so we have to adapt to that to ensure that we're getting vaccine into people's arms as fast as we can. We're actually expecting in the last week in March to receive just somewhat more vaccine than the next week in April. So when we see opportunities to accelerate, we want to accelerate and set appointments, and that's precisely what we're doing. And in the case of today, for example, everyone 84 who is at least 84 years of age, born in 1937 or before, are able to sign up now for appointments. The idea is that we're going to have to, throughout this process, continue to adapt. And our expectation is that, unlike in January, most of that adaptation is going to be to accelerate the opportunity for people to get their vaccination. So that's what's happening now, and it's really positive. I think it's positive that we're, instead of going 85 to 89 today, we're moving on through this week so that people down to the age of 80 will know when they're going to get their vaccinations.
Follow-up, Rob?
Sure, thanks. I guess I'd just like to ask about, are you worried about any confusion, given that we've gone from very specific dates just a couple of weeks ago to now a week in which, if you're 83 or 84, 82, you have a different day to potentially open up? And then also, if I can sneak in another question there, can you continue to bump things up without an online booking system, or do we hit a kind of age cohort where you need that online backup to handle the demand of people?
Yeah, I think I think slowing things down would make people confused, but speeding things up is if anything, a more positive thing. So we're adapting to what we're getting. And that's been the way that we've tried to do this. We wanted to set expectations and make sure that we had the vaccine that we needed on hand, the clinics ready to go, the number of vaccinators and everybody else that's involved with the clinics ready to go. But as we get into the momentum, we want to increase rapidly. And that's what we're trying to do, and trying to make sure that we're keeping pace with the vaccine that we're receiving. And we're getting ongoing changes at the national level as well. The federal government is working very hard to front-end load, as we talked about even 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago when we presented some of the details. We now have changes in that from the national level, where they've been able to bring forward some of the supply that wasn't meant to come until later in the year. So that's good news for us, and what we need to do is adapt to try and use that up and get vaccine into arms as quickly as possible to as many people as possible. So I think it is important for us to speed things up as we can. We are being very cautious, because we have seen, as the Minister mentioned, we've seen before where vaccine shipments have been delayed for reasons that we don't know. And of course, we were a little gun shy through much of February because we had such small quantities of vaccine for a number of weeks. But we're more and more confident that not only are we going to receive what we expect to receive, but it's actually increasing. So that's good news, and it's going to be an all-out effort. And yes, we are working very hard on making sure we have the provincial online process that everybody can use. And the target for that is still, unfortunately, a few weeks away, but we want to make sure that it works and it works well. And these things, for anybody who's developed an IT system like this that has to be interoperable with many other systems, and most importantly, from my perspective, is it gets everybody's information into our provincial immunization registry. So you have a record, we have a record, so some point when you need that record, but also really importantly, that's our safety monitoring system as well. So yes, we're trying to speed things up as much as we can, and that is something that we're working very hard on, and we're going to be test driving in the next little while, and it will be ready to go once we get into our major cohorts of 70 and above. So probably not until April. So we're going to have some combinations before we get to that.